Imagine 3 aircraft that turned the tide of World War II in a single, chaotic morning over the Pacific. Welcome to Midway Legends, where we explore the aircraft that changed naval warfare forever. Today, the dive bomber that sank 4 Japanese carriers, the fighter that invented a game-changing dogfight tactic, and the torpedo plane that became a tragic, cautionary tale. These 3 machines sit preserved aboard the USS Midway Museum, and their stories explain how America won the Pacific War. We'll also have a few of the specs that made these so special, so stick around. The Dauntless, slow but deadly. The Douglas SBD Dauntless looks unassuming, but don't let that fool you. Pilots called it slow but deadly for a reason. It sank more Japanese ships in the war's first year than any other US plane. Those perforated split flaps running along the wings? They're the secret sauce. When fully deployed during a 70-degree dive, they slow the aircraft to just the right speed, giving pilots 30 to 40 seconds to adjust their aim and drop ordnance with surgical precision. Earlier designs without the perforation suffered brutal tail buffeting. The holes solved that, turning a flawed design into a lethal weapon. On June 4th, 1942, at the Battle of Midway, Dauntlesses from the Enterprise, Hornet, and Yorktown screamed down on the Japanese fleet in 2 waves. In 6 brutal minutes, SBDs destroyed 3 carriers. The Akagi, Kaga, and Soryu were engulfed in flames. Later that afternoon, Kiryu, the 4th Japanese fleet carrier, got the same treatment. One day, 4 carriers. American air power had just dethroned the battleship forever. Why is this composite bird parked on Midway's hangar deck? Because it embodies the victory symbol. Combining pieces from 3 real SBD variants, it honors that legacy and every pilot who flew these machines to triumph. Here are some of the specs that made this killer effective. Top speed, 255 miles per hour. 2,250-pound bomb load. 41-foot wingspan. The Wildcat, the Thach Weave master. Meet the Grumman F4F Wildcat, a rugged, built like a tank fighter that pilots trusted with their lives. With an armored cockpit, self-sealing fuel tanks, and a case-hardened steel plate behind the pilot, the Wildcat was built to survive Japanese bullets that shredded other planes. The Japanese Zero could climb higher, turn tighter, hit faster, but it had no armor, no self-sealing tanks, and a fuel system that cut out if you flew upside down or dove hard. The Wildcat didn't need to outmaneuver the Zero, it just needed to not die. Enter Commander John Jimmy Thach, a pilot with a problem and a brilliant solution. Japanese Zeros dominated early in the war because they could turn inside any Allied fighter. But Thach noticed something. A Zero pilot attacking from behind had to straighten out eventually. His tactical innovation was the Thach Weave. 2 Wildcats flew parallel, slightly offset. When a Zero attacked one, that pilot banked hard towards his wingman. The Zero followed and flew directly into his wingman's guns. Then they reverse. Scissors. Deadly scissors. Here's what made it work. This tactic required the specific coordination training American pilots received. Constant wingman drill, radio discipline, practiced timing. When Japanese test pilots captured a Wildcat and tried flying the maneuver, they couldn't replicate it without that training foundation. It wasn't just the plane, it was the system behind it. At Midway, Thach commanded 6 VF-3 Wildcats escorting the incoming torpedo bombers. They tangled with nearly 20 Zeros. Thach himself shot down 3 enemy fighters using the Weave tactic while protecting the slow torpedo planes below. When the smoke cleared, the Wildcats had claimed 6 kills, including Thach's 3, for the loss of just 1 Wildcat. 1. That's a 6-to-1 kill ratio on a day when innovation meant survival. The Wildcat never truly dominated the skies, but it proved that teamwork, armor, and tactics beat raw performance every time. By war's end, Wildcats would rack up roughly 1,000 enemy kills. The USS Midway Museum's F4F embodies this fighter grit, a nod to early carrier air power that held the line until faster Hellcats and Corsairs arrived. A few specs. 331 miles per hour max speed, 6 50 cal machine guns, a 39,500-foot service ceiling. The Devastator, a tragic torpedo man. The Douglas TBD Devastator is history's most cautionary aircraft tale. It was designed in the 1930s as the Navy's first all-metal torpedo bomber. For 1935, it was innovative, reasonable, capable. By 1942, it was obsolete. The fundamental problems were it was too slow, too fragile, and carried a broken weapon. The Mark 13 aerial torpedo was finicky, unreliable, and often failed to detonate even on direct hits. Around 90% of Mark 13s fired from TBDs either veered off course or never exploded. On June 4th, 1942, at Midway, 41 TBDs from Hornet, Enterprise, and Yorktown launched at enemy carriers, flying low and slow at 200 feet, exactly how they were trained. The approach was also exactly wrong. That shallow angle and slow speed caused the torpedo to strike the water at belly flop impact angle, damaging the detonators. Result? 0 hits. Not one. But the zeros were waiting. VT-8 from Hornet, all 15 aircraft were annihilated without scoring a single hit. Only one pilot, Ensign George Gay, got close enough to drop before his plane was shot down. He survived by floating in the wreckage for hours. VT-6 from Enterprise lost 10 of 14 Devastators, including their commander, Lieutenant Commander Gene Lindsay. 4 escaped. VT-3 from Yorktown lost 10 of 13, including Lieutenant Commander Lance Massey, last seen on the wing of his burning aircraft as it plummeted into the sea. Total, 35 of 41 Devastators destroyed. 70 men lost. 0 torpedo hits. Yet here's the tragedy within the tragedy. Their sacrifice actually mattered. By drawing Japanese fighters down to swat the slow torpedo bombers, the Zeros were pulled out of altitude and position. They couldn't intercept the SBD Dauntlesses screaming down from above. The Devastators didn't sink any carriers, but they got 4 carriers sunk anyway, just not by them. The Navy quickly replaced the Devastators with faster, tougher Grumman Avenger, which would prove far more effective. The USS Midway Museum's fresh TBD Devastator replica, originally built for the 2019 film Midway, honors these doomed pioneers. It's a reminder that courage and sacrifice don't guarantee victory. Sometimes, they just make the next guy's job possible. Some quick specs. Only 206 miles per hour top speed, a 3-man crew, and carried a single torpedo. These 3 Midway Legends, Dauntless, Wildcat, Devastator, weren't just machines, they wrote the rules of naval warfare. Dive bombing precision replaced battleship broadsides. Tactical innovation beat superior speed. And sacrifice, even when it fails, can change history. What aircraft moment changed everything for you? Next week, join us for episode 2 of Midway Legends, the presidential pilots and the flights that shaped Cold War history. Now for some fun facts. Dive breaks from disaster. The Dauntless's design roots go back to the Northrop BT-1. Early testers found that pulling out of a dive created violent tail buffeting. The wings literally vibrated like they shake apart. The National Advisory Committee on Aviation had a wild solution: punch holes through the flaps. That single innovation turned a defective design into the most lethal dive bomber of the war. Weave like your life depends on it. The Thach Weave tactic was so dependent on the specific coordination training American pilots received. Constant wingman drills, radio discipline, practiced timing, that when the Japanese test pilots captured a Wildcat and tried flying the maneuver, they couldn't replicate it without that foundation. It wasn't the plane, it was the culture. Torpedo Bomber Cafe. Here's what made the Devastator uniquely terrible. It had a spacious greenhouse cockpit, so roomy that crews could brew hot coffee during long overwater flights. The most comfortable doomed airplane ever built. Most combat aircraft sacrifice comfort for performance. The Devastator sacrificed performance but had comfort. A cruel irony. Wildcat armor kept pilots coming home. A Zero could be shredded by a few machine gun rounds and burst into flames. A Wildcat got Swiss cheesed, peppered with 20mm cannon fire and 50 cal rounds, and the pilot still flew home. That armor difference and the Wildcat's pilot survival advantage helped American squadrons accumulate experience. Surviving pilots became aces. Surviving aces taught rookies. Subscribe to ClipFetch for more fascinating stories about carrier aviation legends and the aircraft that changed history. Comment below, which Midway legend would you have flown and why? Like this video, hit that notification bell, and come back next week for episode 2 of Midway Legends, the Presidential Pilots. Thanks for watching.